Thank you for taking time out of your week to join us for Coastal's online experience. We pray that this message will bring you hope and joy in your life. If you'd like to get to know more about us, please check out our Facebook and Instagram. We'd love to stay connected with you. If this ministry has impacted you in any way, please share your story at mystory@coastalcommunity.tv. Thanks again for spending time with us. Enjoy this week's message.
Well, good morning, 11:50 service. My party people, how you guys doing today? Yes, I think you guys, while you might be the smallest, you are the mightiest. And so thank you guys for being here this morning. My name is Shayla. I am actually Pastor TJ's wife. And I'm excited to get to bring the word to you this morning. Every time I stand up here and speak, I have a new appreciation for my husband. And I'm sure he's very grateful for that. But it takes a lot of work to put together a message, let alone drive back and forth to every service. Like, I just got caught at the train. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do. TJ's going to have to preach this message. And it's just all of those things going on at once. But I'm really excited to get to share in this series, Hustle and Flow, which is all about making your words match your actions. And we've been kind of camping out in the book of James because this series we've been kind of going chapter by chapter, almost line by line through the book of James, just learning what the hustle and flow of life really should look like. And so as we get started this morning, I usually don't title my messages, but I titled my message today, and the title of the message is, What Good Is It? I want you to look at your neighbor, and I want you to say, what good is it? Now I want you to look at your other neighbor, and I want you to say, what good are you? What good is it? What good is it? I mean, we all want good things in life, right? I mean, how many of you guys want good things in your life? Good things to happen, good results from the things that we do. We all want good things to happen. As a matter of fact, you may have heard TJ talk about it maybe once every sermon, but we have a puppy, and his name is Preacher. He is the preacher of the family. And so we have a puppy, and it's kind of like probably having your first kid. You know, when you have your first kid, you're like, oh, my kid did this and my kid did that. And so that's kind of how we are with Preacher. And we're constantly posting on social media and all of these things. But, like, Preacher is our child. And so we have Preacher actually in obedience training. And we have a trainer that comes to the house, and she does the obedience training. Now, she spends about 15 minutes with Preacher and about 45 minutes with TJ and I. Okay, like teaching us how to teach Preacher how to be obedient. And so we have like all of these things that we have to do, and she like gives us homework and all of those kinds of things. But I noticed the other day, every single time she gives us paperwork, but I haven't really looked much at that paperwork. I didn't even bring it in with me. But anyways, I remember what it said because it scarred me. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the paper, and it says, Progress report of jog training. I'm like, progress report? Hold up. I really need to look through this. And she had notes on what we needed to be doing that week and all of those things. And then I look down, and there's a box that says problem solving, and it kind of rates you. And there's 4 categories, and it was like excellent, average, satisfactory, and needs work. And I'm looking at these, categories, then I notice it gives an owner a score, and it gives the dog a score. And I'm looking at, I'm like, ooh, I wonder how I scored, being the owner and everything. You know, he's listening because of me. So I look at owner, and I look over, and no, not excellent, not average, satisfactory. And I was like, that chick called me satisfactory? Like, you guys might not know me, but I am a competitive person. And satisfactory wasn't doing it for me. So I looked down, and I was like, I wonder how my dog did. Do you know that Preacher got a better score than TJ and I did? He got a better score than we did. I'm like, how do you think he learned to do the things that he's doing with my satisfactory training? I was like, heck no, this is not happening. Preacher, this week, you are listening. That score is coming up. We're going excellent this week, son. Because Because we all want good things. I want a good grade. Like, I can't settle for any of that satisfactory stuff. We all want good things to happen in our life. We want good marriages. We want good jobs. We want good hair. At least TJ wants good hair, but I don't know where that gene went. Good relationships, good relationship with God. We all want good things. But how many of you guys know good takes work? Good takes work. And that is the hardest part about good. It takes work. I mean, nobody ever says to their coworker who sits in the cubicle next to them surfing Facebook all day and posting cat memes, nobody says, good job. Great job. You did nothing to contribute to your job today. Nobody says good job to a husband or a wife who just tells their spouse, I love you. But it's their anniversary and they forget that it's their anniversary and nothing happens. Nobody says good job for that. It's a reminder for anybody that has an anniversary coming up. Please go get your spouse something for your anniversary and don't just say I love you. I mean, that's what TJ and I do, but just kidding. But we don't say good job for somebody doing nothing. See, good requires work. What if somebody handed you an iPhone 7 and said, here you go, I just wanted to bless you with this. It doesn't work, but I wanted you to have it. You would say, what good is it? What good is it? And I think today, what we're going to talk about is the same thing in the context of our faith. Because James starts out asking this very question of what good is it? And I think today is going to be a very simple but not simplistic to accomplish kind of message. Because it's easy to talk the talk, but it's much harder to walk the walk. And for good things to begin to happen in our life. I want to tell you guys, this has been one of the most difficult messages for me to write. I have struggled my way through the whole thing. You know, a lot of times I just hear God's voice so fresh and encouraging and all of those things, and I'm just writing, and I'm like, oh man, this is good, and it's just flowing. And for some reason, this time I struggled. And TJ's like, this isn't like you. And I was like, I know. I don't know what it is. And as I was praying through it, and as I was just writing and trying to figure out, God, what do you want me to say? I think there's a couple reasons that I was struggling so bad. And the first reason is because today, honestly, you guys, I'm preaching to myself. I'm teaching you guys a message. I am standing up here communicating the truth of God's word, and I don't have it all together. I have not perfected this subject. Many times I don't even do it well. So I'm preaching this morning from a place not of like, oh man, I got this, I've learned this, I'm good at this. I'm teaching this from a place where God is teaching me, and I'm going, Lord, stretch me, teach me, help me to grow. And so I want you guys to know I am working this out too. I am figuring this out too. And the second reason I think I struggled is because I'm a person that has a very black and white nature. It's like yes or it's no. You're in or you're out. Like there is no gray for me in my life. Somebody in the last service goes, yeah, that's true. I was like, excuse me. Black or white. But in James is so much like this. And I think I struggled because so many times my black and white nature gets me in trouble because people think, well, she's not sweet, she's not kind, there's not a whole lot of mercy and grace. I'm pretty much just, I'm going to tell you like it is. There's not a whole lot of sweetness to me. And so I struggled because it's like, God, I want these people to hear this through the lens of love and grace and appreciation and mercy and all of those things. But it's not something that comes natural to me. And so today I'm just letting you know that this was a struggle, but I'm going, God, teach me through this. And so James starts out chapter 2, verse 14, and he says, what good is it? And then he begins to butter them up because I think James knows he's black and white and he's not too mercy friendly, any of those things, and he's just telling it like it is. So he butters them up and says, dear brothers and sisters, You know, I have a friend, her name's Kristen. She's my very best friend, and she and I have been friends for probably 10 or 12 years. And as I was getting to know Kristen, as we were building that relationship and as we were becoming friends, I noticed that she had a couple of things that she did in her life. And I knew when Kristen was about to have a difficult conversation. I knew when she was about to challenge somebody or say something that was hard, because Kristen's from South Louisiana. And she has that real sweet, just Southern charm. And she's just talking to everybody in the sweetest kind of voice and the sweetest accent. And she could cuss you out and you'd be like, oh, isn't she the sweetest thing? But she just had that kind of accent. And so I started noticing that when Kristen would do one thing in particular, when you would see her hand come up by her mouth like this, and there would be a couple of words that she uttered from her mouth, and she would literally say these words. She would go, in the sweetest way. Every time she was about to have a hard conversation, she'd say, Shayla, in the sweetest way, you got a booger in your nose. Shayla, in the sweetest way, what you did last week, that hurt my feelings. In the sweetest way. So you knew when that hand started going up and in the sweetest way started coming out, you were about to get your throat punched. In the sweetest way. That's kind of what James is doing right here. He goes, what good is it? In the sweetest way. If you say you have faith, but you don't show it by your actions, what kind of faith? Can that kind of faith save anyone? And what I would say today is, what good is it? Sweet, amazing, smart, beautiful, coastal community church. If you say you have action, or you say you have faith, but you don't show it by your actions. James, he's like, we need throat protectors from James, because he's just going at it. He said, what good is it if you say you have faith, but you have no action? Then he goes on and he says, suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye, have a nice day, stay warm, eat well. But then you don't give that person any food or clothes. What good does that do? Basically, what James is communicating here, and remember, I'm working through this too. Basically, James is saying, what good is it if you see somebody in need and you say, well, bless your heart. Bless your heart. I am praying for you. Man, I am praying that God will send someone in your life to meet that need. Hello. He's put them right there. And you know good and well you got a pantry full of food back home. Or you got an extra dollar in your wallet. Or you have an encouraging word to share. But by all means, I'll pray somebody comes your way. And we have every single thing that we need to be the answer to that prayer, yet we do nothing. And we think, well, maybe it's somebody else's responsibility. Maybe it's the church's responsibility. Well, let me tell you something. The church is not just a building that we attend on Sunday. The church is something that we carry as individuals throughout the week. You and I are the church. And it is our responsibility when need is before us, when people are before us, not to say, oh, be warm and filled, but to say, Lord, here I am. Use me. See, what good is it if you have faith without action? And James goes into talking about two different kinds of faith. He talks about faith with action and faith without action. And we see in verse 17, it says, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough. unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Dang, James, dead and useless? Could you use any other words? Dead and useless. Now, let me be clear about something. Works do not save you. What you do does not save you. You cannot earn salvation. Jesus Christ did that for you over 2,000 years ago on the cross when he paid for your sin. It's not something that you earn, it is something you accept. See, salvation is a free gift. However, the works portion comes when we have received salvation and Christ is now living in us and working through us, and the fruit begins to come out of us. I'm talking about saved people living out a life that looks like they've been saved. Faith without action, what good is it? See, faith is like receiving a gift, or it's like receiving a tool. You can be in possession of it, but if you don't utilize it, what good is it? Somebody can give me a pen, and I can set this pen on the table and go, oh man, the stories I'm going to write with that pen. The people that I'm going to encourage by the notes that I write with that pen, oh man, I'm going to do great things with that pen. But if we never pick it up and begin to utilize it and to write and all of those things, what good is it? See, you can be in possession of something, but until you take it and begin to activate it and use it, James is saying it's dead and useless. See, the same is true with our faith. We have to activate those places in our life. So James says faith without action is dead and it's useless. See, when it's all talk and no action, there's nothing that is produced in our life. It's useless. I remember several years ago, I was serving in our kids ministry one week because we needed some extra volunteers. If you love kids, we need kids volunteers, and we would love for you to jump in and get involved. I just want to say, we have some of the greatest volunteers on the face of this earth at this church, and I am so grateful for people that don't just don't just sit and partake in church, but they're actual participators. And I am so thankful for the people that do that. And they're making a difference, not in the next generation, but those kids are the generation. And investing in them now. And so, anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. I was serving in kids ministry this day, and I was actually serving in the 3 and 4-year-old class. Bless you parents who have 3 and 4-year-olds, let me just tell you. So I'm serving in these classes, and these are the cutest kids, okay? I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so adorable. How could they do anything that is not right or annoying or anything? And so we're getting ready to teach the lesson, and I'm so excited. I'm standing there, and I'm getting ready to teach, and all of those things. I'm like, gosh, the kids are so adorable. And one of these kids starts acting up. And she starts kind of disrupting the whole group while I'm trying to teach, and just kind of acting out, and then she stuck her tongue out at me, and I was like, oh no, you didn't stick your tongue out at me. What are we, 4? Yes. And so I said, I got on her level in the sweetest way. I said, honey, I'm going to need you to listen to what Miss Shayla says. I'm going to need you to stop distracting the other kids. We got some fun stuff to learn. And if you can't pay attention and you keep disrupting the class, I'm going to have to call your mom. I played that card because I didn't know what to do. And so we went. It was good for a few minutes, and everything was fine. Everybody's paying attention, and here she goes again. She's acting up and disrupting and all those things, and I got on her level in the sweetest way again. And I sat there and I said, now, honey, you is kind, you is smart. I mean, and I said, now you're going to have to listen. And I need you to pay attention because everybody has something to learn today, and it's exciting and it's fun. And if you can't pay attention, I'm going to have to call your mom. You guys, that happened about 4 times. We're on the 5th time. She's disrupting, and I get down on her level, and I said, now, honey, and one of the boys shoots his, Miss Shayla? And I said, yes. He goes, I think you need to call her mom. And I was like, what in the world? This 4-year-old just taught me a lesson. Too much of this, you need to call her mom. You keep talking about it, but you're not doing anything. And I learned from a 4-year-old that you can have a lot of talk in your life, but if there's no production and there is no action, it means nothing. It is useless. And that's what James is saying here. And he goes on to say, now some of you may argue, some people have faith and others have good deeds. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I'll show you my faith by my good deeds. He says, you say you have faith, for you believe that there is only one God. Good for you. I love James. He says, even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless? James, he's just like beating the horse. He just keeps saying it over and over again because I think it's something that's so important in our life. You know, it's like if you got married and you were on your wedding day and it's the greatest day of your life and you're saying your vows and you're making those commitments before a pastor or a priest or, you know, whatever is before you, and you're making those commitments and you're saying, I do. Man, my life is going to be great. I just said I do. We go home, we get all excited. Man, I'm going to have such a great marriage. I said I do. But how many of you guys know just saying I do doesn't mean your marriage is going to be great? All the married people said amen. Because marriage requires what? It requires work in order for it to be good. And you can't just say I do and then go home and sit on the couch and say, hey, honey, I love you. Oh, I love you. Can you give me the remote? I love you. I need a sandwich. I love you. We need some extra money. You think you can get a second job? I love you so much, babe. You think you could clean up around here? Like, I got some trash next to me. But I love you. What? That marriage, what is going to happen? It's going to be a dead marriage. Because we can say, I love you. But if actions don't come from that, what good is it? And so many times we do this in our faith. We say, Lord, I love you. I accept you. I believe in you. Lord, I love you. Lord, I need a job. God, I need a man. Can you bring me a man? God, I need some extra finances this month. Lord, I'm sick. I need this. And we ask God for all of these things, and that is not bad. We need to do those things. God tells us to do those things. He says, ask anything of me. However, some of us need to quit praying for God to do things for us, and we need to get up and begin to take action for those things to begin to happen. I mean, so many times we say, I love you, Lord, and I believe in you, but nothing in our life really communicates that. See, faith brings us to salvation, but our active obedience demonstrates that our faith is genuine. And I think there's so many people that I've heard so over and over again say, why does God allow bad things to happen? Why does God allow poverty? And see, I think God, many years ago, created the solution to all of it, and it was you and it was me. It's up to us as Christ followers to be the solution. Instead of complaining or using the cop-out Christian answer of, oh, I'll pray for them. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't pray. I'm saying that you should pray about it and then get up off your blessed assurance and do something about it. And begin to take action. Because the reality is you are the solution and I am the solution. And while we might not be able to do everything, we can do something. And if all of us got up and began to do something, this world would look a lot different. And there would be a whole lot of things that begin to change around us. It's why we do things like adopt a block and call your city. It's why we do things like support kids in Africa and go do mission trips and all of those things to help the orphan and the widow and to provide schooling and education and all of those different things. It's why we give money to the local food banks. It's because we want to invest in those things that are doing something, and we want to step out and begin to activate our faith in things. And we want you guys to have opportunity to be part of that and do that. You don't need the church to make a difference, although we want you to be part of that. You yourself, God created you to make a difference and to be active in your faith. You know, several years ago when we were at our church in Bradenton and TJ was pastoring there, he was one of the associate pastors. One weekend he was preaching, and after he was done preaching, he got in his car and he noticed he needed gas. So he drove to the gas station and he pumped up his gas, and you know that annoying thing on the screen that says see the attendant? Well, he had to do that. And so he goes in to see the attendant, and on his way in, there's a guy standing there, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, I really need some money. I need some money to fill up my gas and get my family some food." And TJ said, "Oh man, I don't really have much to give you. Sorry about that, dude." And he walked into the convenience store. He paid for his gas, and as he walks back out, he felt this conviction inside of him. And TJ always has a little bit of cash stashed somewhere. I know he does. He doesn't tell me, but. So he walks back out, and he hands the guy $20, and he says, "Hey, man, you know what? I hope this helps put gas in your car and get a little bit of food for your family." And the guy goes, "Thank you so much, sir. I just sat in the service that you preached on serving." See, people are watching your faith. They're watching what you do. They're watching to see, are you just saying this? Are you really going to do something about it? You know, in James 2:21, it says, "Don't you remember that our ancestor Abraham was shown to be right with God by his actions when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see, his faith and his actions worked together. It wasn't either or, it was both and. His faith and his actions worked together. His actions made his faith complete. And so it happened, just as scriptures say, Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He was even called a friend of God." Man, I wish that God would call me his friend. So you see, we're shown to be right with God, shown by what we do and not faith alone. Then it goes on to say Rahab, the prostitute, is another example. She was shown to be right with God by her actions when she hid the messengers and sent them safely away by a different road. Just as the body is dead without breath, so is faith dead without good works. So if faith without action or faith without works is dead and useless, what is faith with action? I think we can be safe to say that faith with action is alive. It breathes. See, I have a firm belief that as Christ followers, as Christians, we should be the most positive, life-giving people on the face of the earth. And again, this is coming from a place I'm preaching to myself. See, we have the greatest answer to any need or any problem. We've been saved. We have been set free. And when we really have faith, it breathes life. When we truly have faith, if we have accepted Jesus and we truly believe that he is our Savior, why wouldn't we want to share that hope and encouragement and life with every single person around us? If that is truly what we grab hold of. See, you don't have to go around preaching, but you certainly can go around living a life that reflects Jesus Christ. And my hope and my dream for my own life and for our church is that we would be the kind of church that has the visible faith that when people look at us, they say, wow, I want to be like him. Man, I want to be like her. There's just something about them that is so full of life. I just want to be around them. So faith that has action is alive and it's useful. It benefits other people that are around us in life. When our faith is active, there's a benefit for so many people. The people that we impact, the people that we encourage, the people that we serve, those people are impacted because we're active in our faith. You know, as a church, we've always stepped way outside of our faith box. Like, it's been scary to take a lot of the steps that we've taken, and you guys have heard us talk about our Immeasurably More building project that we're doing in Parkland. And if I can just be real with you guys, it is so scary as leaders and as pastors to stand up in front of your church and say, hey, will you guys be part of this? Will you guys give towards this? Will you guys invest in this? Because the last thing that we ever want is for somebody to step into a place and feel like, oh, all that church wants is my money. Because that is not our heart. And as I sat down this week and I was thinking about something being useful and beneficial to others, I thought about TJ and I's faith journey. And the things that God has asked us to continue to do. And I said, Lord, I'm scared to share about Immeasurably More. I'm scared to ask people to be part of that. And I just sat down and I started writing and saying, what would I share? What would I share if I had the courage to do that? And I just began to write, and page after page, and God said, I want you to share it. So I'm going to jump out of my box, and I'm going to share it. It says, when God called TJ and I to start this church about 8 years ago, it took a huge act of faith. See, we knew that God called us, but it wasn't easy to leave the comfortable for the unknown. It was going to cost us everything that we had to move to a place where we knew no one, to do something that we had never done. It was scary. And every bit of it was a risk. But because of our faith that is anchored in something so secure, we could step out in confidence knowing that God had a plan. See, his plan was for each of you to be here today. His plan was for marriages to be restored through this church. His plan was for addictions to be broken through this church. His plan was for your kids to find relationship with Jesus through this church. His plan was for people that they would step through the doors of this church and they would find him. His plan never ends, and actually it seems like it only requires more and more faith from us. It was a huge step a couple years ago when we stepped out in faith, when we weren't even ready to start our Pompano Beach campus. Because God knew that the people that were going to walk through the doors and find him, and find community and find healing. See, faith is risky. And again, God's stretching our faith by building this facility in Parkland. And honestly, it's beyond us. It's stretching us. But every time God's asked us to step out in faith, he's provided through his people. And every step of the way, it hasn't been about a new church plant or a new campus or a new building. It's been about the people. The people that he loves. The people that he wants a relationship with. The church plant, the campus, the building, that's just the tool. Because he sees every single name. He saw your name. He sees every person that will step into that place, every name of every person. And every name has a story, and every story matters to him. God always asks us to step out in faith for the benefit of others. And this is what I want to ask my church, but I'm scared. I wonder if you would step out in faith with us to help build the tool that God is going to use to change kids, to change families, to change marriages, to form future marriages. See, we need your faith. With our faith to make this happen, we need you to pray with us. That God continues to go before us as we move forward, that even now we can make a difference in that community. We need you to pray about how God would want you to be a part through giving. Will you give towards the future of what God is going to do through this church? Will you be a part of making an eternal difference for the names that God already sees? Will you be an active part of the immeasurably more that God wants to do in this church? See, this project and these things that we ask you to give for is so much more than a building. It's about the people that are going to sit in that place. That's what it was about 3 years ago when we started Pompano. It was about the people that would sit in this place. And I want to ask you guys to pray. Because in a couple weeks, that opportunity to give is going to be here. 2 Sundays from now. So will you pray and will you say, God, how do you want me to be a part? What part do you want me to play? And then do whatever he tells you. See, faith with action is alive. And it's useful. But it also makes our faith complete. That word complete in the Greek literally means to accomplish, to consummate, to consecrate, to finish, to fulfill, to make perfect. Basically, it means to pass the test. You know, Pastor TJ talked about this in the first couple weeks of this series about the tests that are before us that we have to take in order to go to that next level. And when we are active in our faith, it brings completion. And it also brings right standing with God. It says that we'll be justified. In verse 24, it says, so you see, we are shown to be right with God by what we do, not by faith alone. We are shown to be in right standing with God. It's how we live out our faith. What is it saying about you? What is it saying about your relationship with God? I think if we're people who have faith with action, I can't imagine how different our families would be. how different our church would be, how different our community would be. If we all took responsibility for our faith and said, I can make a difference, how would things change around us? I want to read this one story really quickly. And you may have heard it before, but it's the starfish story. It says, once upon a time, there was an old man who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. And he had a habit of walking on the beach every morning before he began his work. Early one morning, he was walking along the shore after a big storm had passed, and he found a vast beach littered with starfish as far as the eye could see, stretching in both directions. And off in the distance, the old man noticed a small boy approaching. And as the boy walked, he would pause every so often. As he grew closer, the man could see that he was occasionally bending down to pick up an object, and then he was throwing it back into the sea. And as the boy came closer still, the man called out, "Good morning. May I ask what it is you're doing?" And the young boy paused, and he looked up, and he replied, and he said, "I'm throwing starfish into the ocean because the tide has washed them up on the beach, and they can't return to the sea by themselves." The boy replied. He said, "When the sun gets high, they will die unless I throw them back in the water." And the old man replied, and he said, "But there must be tens of thousands of starfish on this beach, and I'm afraid you won't really be able to make much of a difference." And the boy, he bent down, picked up yet another starfish, and he threw it as far as he could into the ocean, and he turned and he smiled at the man, and he said, "I made a difference for that one." It's much like what God created us to do. He's not asking us to go and to change everyone and change the world. But he's saying, pick up one. Make a difference for one. What could this community look like if every single one of us stood up and said, it starts with me?
Thank you for taking time out of your week to join us for Coastal's online experience. We pray that this message will bring you hope and joy in your life. If you'd like to get to know more about us, please check out our Facebook and Instagram. We'd love to stay connected with you. If this ministry has impacted you in any way, please share your story at mystory@coastalcommunity.tv. Thanks again for spending time with us. Enjoy this week's message.